We're super excited to have Ray Baeza. Yep, Baeza here today. He is going to be talking about primary ICS and SCADA, he is a primary ICS SCADA senior security specialist, and he's going to be talking about securing the harvest, cyber defense for agricultural control systems. He is the founder of Agricultural Defense Group, a company dedicated to cybersecurity services tailored for the agricultural industry. Growing up in Davis, California, Ray was deeply rooted in the world of agriculture with over 6 years of experience as an ICS and cybersecurity engineer. He has developed specialized skills in ICS detection engineering and incident response. Ray's passion for industrial control systems and the agricultural sector fuels his commitment to protecting agricultural systems from cyber threats. And so, learning about Ray a bit, he actually has a farm in his family, so it's not just his job, but his passion, that he comes from deep roots in this space. Says he might actually become a farmer one day. So he is trying to protect his own assets. So we appreciate him being here and look forward to hearing the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. I know it's kind of difficult finding this track. I know I got lost, so thank you for making that extra effort to join me today. Closer? Okay. Okay, there we go. So with that being said, let's get right started. So thank you for joining today. I'll be speaking about securing the harvest, particularly in bringing awareness to cybersecurity within the realm of agriculture. In the past, so I've been, which like you said in this introduction, and I come from an agriculture background and specifically the utilities background as well. And one thing I've noticed throughout my years working in protecting critical infrastructure is that everybody speaks about electricity, power, which rightfully so. That's obviously it's very important. However, nobody ever talks about our food supply or agricultural, even our local farmers down at that granular level, right? That actually produce the foods. I'm not talking about Tyson Foods or these major companies that have the funds and the resources that local farmers do not have. I'm talking about bringing awareness to the agriculture community and the industry as a whole. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. So the agenda, introduction, why agriculture, state of the agriculture industry, threats to ICS systems in agriculture. I'll be speaking about some APT groups that I've noticed throughout the years targeting the industry, as well as China's 5-year plan, and also be giving examples, as many of you guys already know, the JBS food attack that happened a couple years by Russia. I'll be speaking also about the pillars affected and the future of the industry. Just a quick introduction, as I didn't realize Tim was going to do such an amazing job introducing me, but a quick introduction about myself. My name is Ray Baeza. I'm the founder of Agricultural Defense Group. I'm originally from Davis, California, Yolo County. For those who don't know, it's right by Sacramento, small ag town, mostly known for the University of UC Davis. So shout out to UC Davis. But so I'm from Davis, California. My background is ICS OT cybersecurity, but I grew up in farming my whole life, picking tomatoes, doing the whole 9 yards, flipping tractor tires, even chasing chickens around the farm, right? So my background is fossil farming. And the mission, pretty much, of why I started the company, or even why I'm doing this whole thing, is I want to strengthen America's food security by working together with farmers to safeguard the food supply chain from cyber threats. As many of you guys know, for those that do work in agriculture that are here today, as you guys know, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to the supply chain for agriculture. So if we can at least lock down some of those pillars, that's still a win in my opinion. It's better than nothing. So that's my main mission, and that's pretty much why I do all this. So next slide. So why agriculture? So for those that, like I mentioned earlier, nobody really talks about agriculture, right? Everybody's kind of focused on power and electricity. But however, agriculture actually contributes to 20% of all economic growth for the United States, right? So it's a pretty big chunk. I mean, it's a good thing, and it's one of the few sectors actually that has all the other sectors tied into it in some fashion or another. Yes, electricity, for example, most utilities, obviously they play a role in something. However, they control their own assets, right? I can't speak for other utilities throughout the United States, but I know, coming from my background in California, those utilities, they control their own assets, they control everything, they have their own funds and everything, right? Oh, that's weird. And so it's one of those critical sector that everything is tied into it. So water, chemical, transportation, technology, communications, energy, financial, and manufacturing, right? Food prices, everything's all tied in that fashion. And then pretty much the main goal from what I've seen for the most part on why agriculture is important is because the tax that I've seen there, at least in the agriculture industry, it's the main goal is to slow down the production or slow down like from the point the tomato gets picked to the point it gets sold. Their job's to slow down at some point throughout the supply chain, and obviously that's going to disrupt the food supply. That's going to disrupt prices. That's going to disrupt obviously everything. It's going to be a domino effect because for the most part, all of us when you go to the store, we expect to see strawberries or a banana every time we go to the store, right? And if they're not there, that causes a demand, and vice versa. You can see how that can turn into something bigger. I do apologize. I don't know why it keeps doing this. So the state of cybersecurity in agriculture. So one of you guys probably are you're asking yourselves like, so what? Yeah. Do you know what's going on, or have I? Yeah. You- Oh. Yeah. I think it's the clicker's like locked or something. Okay. Okay. Can you go back without sharing all of my secrets already? There you go. So, state of cybersecurity in agriculture. Things that I've seen so far in the industry, in the current state. This is just my opinion. If anybody else here, I'd love to have a conversation afterwards on if you think the state's a little bit different or things that we can improve on. But from what I've seen, the state of cybersecurity in agriculture is that there's various exposed ICS systems that are out there, right? A simple showdown scan will show a lot of IoT devices, SCADA devices, RDP, workstations, water pumps, you name it, it's out there, right? I'm not saying go do it and do anything malicious, but it's definitely out there, right? Anybody can do it. And as well as various companies are exposed, right, to trucking, or as a result of that, though, a lot of companies are exposed. So trucking companies, tomato companies, meat processing companies. Now, I'm not talking about JBS Foods or like these other major ones, which obviously they were, but there's a lot of other small meat processing companies out there that are also exposed. And they're being targeted by various AP2 groups and countries. And as I'll show here in a later slide, you'll see a natural increase in the tax on agriculture industry, or a tax on these companies. And then one thing I kind of want to mention here, because this is one thing I've noticed specifically in the last 3 or 4 years, specifically as during COVID, there's been an increase in autonomous tractors, autonomous devices, autonomous sprayers, which are all cool. I mean, they're cool to look at. I'm not gonna lie. I've been to some of these conferences where they're demoing these sprayers and they look like cyber trucks out there. It's actually kind of cool. However, that also presents another new threat vector to the industry, right? Because you're introducing all these new technologies without properly vetting them, and there are some new these new sprayers and tractors coming from China and Russia. And prime example is I was talking to this farmer and I was like, hey, this thing's pretty cool. Obviously, he went with the Chinese company, and obviously it's cheaper. However, I asked him, I was like, "Hey, are you vetting these? Are you vetting this? What do you know? How do you know what information is collecting off of you?" He's like, "Oh, well, they said that it's not sending anything back to China. It's centralized here on my network." And I was like, so did you verify that? I mean, trust and verify, right? And he's like, no, I mean, I'm taking their word. And I was like, oh, well, that's not the first time they said something. So that's what I see happening in the next couple years, specifically, obviously, with most companies, right? They're going more with AI and autonomous and automation, right? So that's one thing I would say maybe look out for here in the next 5 or 10 years that we might see more attacks on that specific vector of the agriculture industry. Next slide. Um, so going back to the OT, obviously, background's OT, so that's what I want to stick to. So when it actually comes to the actual ICS OT devices in the agriculture industry, attackers are scanning these devices on platforms such as Shodan, kind of mentioned earlier, and they're targeting specific sectors within the supply chain, such as trucking, manufacturing, field sensors, water pumps, biotechnology, crop yields, crop data, research and development. Right, all these different vectors obviously play a role in the whole grand scheme of things. So I feel like from what I've seen, they're being very specific in what they target, right? And I'll mention here in a little bit, but for example, China, right? China's very specific on what they're targeting, right? Research and development. They want to steal certain technologies so they can advance their agricultural industry or whatever, right? And so what I mean by that's what they're targeting. That's kind of what I meant by this slide right here. Next slide. Staying on the OT topic here, as I had mentioned, there's a lot of exposed devices out there, and when I mean a lot, there's a lot. Here I just took some simple screenshots of some recon that I did. Here is an RDP session from an actual meat processing farm, and that's not good because anybody here with any actual skill set here can probably guess that password. I'll leave it at that. And so that's not good, right? Another thing here too, I just want to give an example of a fuel tank. There's a lot of fuel tank exposed devices or devices are internet facing. And some of you guys might ask, like, well, why does that matter? That matters a lot because, for example, a lot of these trucking companies have these fuel tanks in front of the yard, right? During tomato season, which is a 24-hour operation, right? They got to cut the tomato, ship it off, clean it, do what they got to do, right? Campbell's soup or whatever they got to do, right? It's a 24-hour operation. You affect those fuel pumps. Now you're forcing their trucks to go 10, 15 minutes down the road to another local gas station that can hold or has the capability to fill up a big rig, right? And now you're adding an hour to their commute, vice versa. Now you got your whole fleet going to that one location. As you can see here, it can turn into a very disaster issue for these trucking companies, and that's why I really kind of wanted to include that in there because these fuel pumps could impact operations, not necessarily may bring down the company, but during harvesting season, that makes a big difference. Next slide. And here's another example of it. This company example, there's actually something else I found in this company. I actually took it out because I don't want any legal liabilities. But this company is a pretty big operation in Northern California. And those fuel tanks, as you can see here in the front, those are all internet facing. And that's, I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's a pretty big thing to affect if somebody were to get in there. So, as you can see here, there's a lot of fuel tanks, and you can see how much is in each fuel tank, and you can, there's a lot you can do there. So, yeah, it's out there. So that's, again, the whole point of this is to bring awareness to the industry and things we need to fix as a whole. Next slide. So now as you can see, I don't want to sound like a crazy person here because I want to really show what I've been seeing the last 5 or 6 years since I've been doing this is that since 2014, I went back as far as I can, remember or as what I can find. And the first known, or at least from what I've seen, the first known cyber attack on any type of agriculture industry was back in 2014. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but that's just based on the research that I've seen and things I've done in the last 5 or 6 years. Between 2015 and 2019, obviously there's nothing there, but I don't think it's not because nothing happened. I just think that nobody's reported it. And that's one key thing because I know, for example, I've spoken to local fertilizer companies, other local farmers in Northern California, and they said, well, we think we had an incident or whatever, we think something happened, but who do we report it to? That's one thing I've been kind of noticing in the industry as well, is that they don't have the resources. Not like utilities, for example, that you go, obviously, you got to report it to FBI, you got to go through the proper chain of command within a 24-hour window, right? A lot of local farmers or local I guess, individuals in the industry, they don't know who to report to, which is maybe a lack of awareness, lack of knowledge, right? It's no fault to them. Their job is to produce food, kind of like power system engineers. Their job is to keep the lights on. Their job is not to do security. Um, so that's why there's that gap there. And then obviously started up in 2020, and then obviously over the years, there's been a huge increase. 2023 was actually obviously a very busy year. I believe there's a total of 169 cyber-related incidents at some point or another in some type of agricultural company, which is kind of big. And that I got from my friends over at the ISAC. So if also too, shout out to them. If any of you guys want to join them and get more awareness, join that group. They're a pretty cool bunch. So that's a pretty big thing. Obviously, you can see a huge spike. Whether obviously it was a huge impact or not, I'm sure JBS Foods was in there, obviously, but at some point, it can be something similar as even a small compromise, right? Or even if it led to nothing, but you have to note it. And then 2024, there's been a couple already, but obviously it's not over yet. So I don't know, maybe the threat actors decide to go somewhere else, I guess, for maybe they take this year off or something. But this stuff's still out there, so again, who's not to say that's already happened, but they haven't reported it, right? Next slide. So who's doing all this hacking, right? Who's accounting for all these different attacks in the industry? From what I've seen, obviously Lockbit. I mean, I feel like most of you guys know who Lockbit is. Player Play Crypt, they go either or. 8base, China, and then Russia. Obviously, China's two different missions versus Russia. I feel like Russia's more objectives are to impact the supply chain, and China's objectives is to more steal intellectual research and development and affect the supply, and obviously control the supply chain as well. And I'll speak about that here shortly. Next slide. Yeah. So, don't mean to, I guess, hound on China, but that's one of the biggest things I've seen in the last 5 or 6 years since I've been doing this is that they're targeting the industry hard. And what I mean, they are taking what they want and doing it what they want in the industry. They are doing it either traditionally hacking, either the traditional hacking way, which most of us think, or they're doing it the traditional legal ways. So, traditional hacking, here an example of the Monsanto attack, USA Herds app, and the Iowa Grain Co-op. Insider threats as well as Monsanto, right? That's for those who don't know. There was actually, it kind of hits home actually. Now that I think about it, there was a UC Davis grad student who she was actually an agent for CCP that portrayed as a research student, right? And she got an internship at Monsanto, whose objective was to steal Monsanto research and development. Luckily, she got caught by FBI, so they're doing their jobs. But that's an example of how they're getting in, as well as the traditional legal ways, right? China is buying American farms or companies such as Smithfield Foods. There has been a couple. Obviously, any landowners in here? Yeah. Okay, so you guys are probably like me, you guys keep track of like local farms are being sold, local land that's being sold, right? Who's doing what, who are your neighbors, right? Or what's being shut down by the government, or vetoing these sales, right? But China's definitely doing that. They are specifically buying specific plots of land or next to local farms, big farms as well. I wouldn't be surprised if they're taking a page out of Monsanto's playbook, where Monsanto, for those that don't know, they'll actually purchase a lot next to your farm, and then when their crops crossbreed with your farm, they'll actually sue you for intellectual theft. And obviously, Monsanto being Monsanto, obviously they have millions and billions of dollars, and you don't. So you're going to lose that in court every single day, and as a result, right, they'll just buy you out and continue dominating the industry, right? So I feel like, from what I've seen, I feel like that's what China is doing. Next slide. Operation Purple Maze, and this is one that I really want to include in here because it brings the level of the extent of what China is doing to attack the agricultural industry, not in a traditional cyber way, but definitely in whether it's insider threat, or I don't even know how you would categorize this, but it's definitely a way to steal research and development, right? They don't have to hack you and steal your information. They're doing it other ways. So Operation Purple Maze, it's actually a publicly operation that's now publicly, you can research it, you can Google it. I believe it happened in 2014 or 2015, if I remember correctly. And Robert Moore, a Chinese citizen, was sentenced to 3 years in prison for conspiracy to steal trade secrets from U.S. agriculture companies Monsanto and DuPont Pioneer. And for those who don't know, they develop seeds. The Chinese citizen and 5 others who participated in theft of inbred corn seeds from these fields companies owned and aimed at shipping them to a Chinese company. So pretty much what they're doing, they caught him in Iowa. That's when the investigation initially started. But pretty much what they're doing, they're driving across the entire, what do you call it, northwest or north central part of America, Iowa, all the major states, right? And what they're doing is that they're pretty much digging. I don't know how. It still hasn't been known how they figured out what farms had specific seeds, right? Somebody probably, they probably paid somebody off, so they knew exactly what farms to hit. Because at the end of the day, cornfield in Iowa, they all look the same. You don't know what's what, right? So they had to have gotten the information, either through somebody, or if you think about it, right, knows what specific farm off of what specific lot. So they probably did some research on obtaining land. They probably went to a local county and pulled land records or whatever, right, to understand what lot is what. But essentially, they were driving across that region of the United States and they were digging up the seeds. They got caught because a farmer saw, obviously this Chinese citizen, and I guess in a business suit. He's like, "What are you doing out here? You're not supposed to be here." Called it in. The cops didn't have anything on him because at the end of the day, he wasn't technically doing anything wrong. And if you don't have a record, then there's nothing they can do, really, right? But when his name went into the system, the local FBI agent or the local field office, that's kind of when the spark happened, because that agent realized, hey, I've seen this name somewhere else. Someone reported him back in Nebraska or something like that, and that's how the investigation started. Luckily, the FBI, at the end of this investigation, they were able to intercept the package before it was shipped back to Canada, and from Canada they're going to go back to China. But they essentially went into their hotel room, swapped out the seeds with some other seeds, and acted like nothing. But that's only one time. Who's not to say this hasn't happened already, or they're able to steal these seeds already, right? The FBI, unfortunately, they do great work, and I have friends in the FBI, and they're amazing people. But at the end of the day, their resources, just with any company, any cyber team, resources are limited, right? You have to deal with what you got. And as some of you guys might know, you guys might ask, well, why does this matter? It's just a seed. Well, that seed can cost these companies $30 to $40 million if stolen, right? You're talking about years and years of research and development, and if you're able to bypass all that, just with go through reverse engineering, obviously, you can cause a lot of damage to these companies. Next slide. JBS Foods, Cybertech. See some OT people in here, so I'm pretty sure you guys know what this is. So I won't dive too much into it, but for those that don't know, JBS Foods is a very large meat processing operation. They have locations throughout the world, but this attack specifically targeted the United States, Australia, and I believe the Brazil operations. The attackers were able to get in and pretty much just like the Colonial Pipeline attacks, they were able to get in and take the devices offline. And even though they got everything back online I believe within like 48 hours, but still that impact, those 48 hours, it cost the company $11 million, that's a lot of money, especially when it comes to agriculture companies, because to me, $1 million, $11 million, that hurts. I go to Vegas and I lose $100 at a slot machine, and I'm mad because I could have bought a nice dinner or something with that, right? So $11 million is still a lot of money, but at the end of the day, I included this in here because there is that correlation between OT, ICS systems. Just like the Colonial Pipeline, a lot of those same tactics can be leveraged in this industry, and you can be very successful at it, which is not good, but the whole point of this is to start bringing awareness to the industry and bringing awareness to the cybersecurity community as a whole. Next slide. So what can be done? Just how I tell my clients, there's always bad news, and I don't want to fear monger anyone or anything like that. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Basic things, right? Practice good cyber hygiene. You'd be surprised if utilities were, for example, behind the curve when it came to OT security 5 years ago. You'd be surprised how behind the curve a lot of these companies are. Do thorough background checks on new hires. Obviously, I feel like most people do that, but they're still getting in to steal your research, right? Have a good cyber team, and if you use a third-party service provider, ask about their cyber posture. There's a lot of these farmers and I guess ag companies that outsource their services, right, to some type of CSOC or something like that, right? But ask them. I always tell my clients, well, ask them what's their cyber posture like. How many how are they monitoring the alerts, right? What are they looking for in your alerts, right? Like how many tickets are being opened on your company or anything like that, so you understand, what are they doing, right? They just don't assume, right? Trust and verify. Provide quarterly phishing and cybersecurity awareness through training. That's kind of a big thing because, again, just having awareness in the industry as a whole, that's the main objective the last 5 or 6 years, because not a lot of people, they don't speak about it, right? It's I can't recall how many times I've actually, every company that I've assisted in, hardening their systems, I ask them, okay, do you guys do any quarterly phishing, or do you do anything to educate your staff on cybersecurity? And when they say, well, no, because it's just the lack of knowledge is not there, and it's no fault to them. It's just it's something that we're all there. I mean, I think every industry that's represented here at some point 10 years ago, they weren't doing it. So it's just a matter of bringing it up to speed now. Understanding your risk and technology you're implementing in your environment, going back to the automated tractors, the automated sprayers, everything like that. You need to do a thorough risk analysis on these new technologies you're including in your environment to really understand what's being collected of your system, and what's being shipped off or whatever. Just like TikTok, China says that they're not stealing any, they're not taking anything, but are they though? So trust and verify. And then the biggest thing is just have a cybersecurity incident response plan. I put that in bold because till this day, every company I've interacted with, they have not had a cybersecurity incident response plan, which is A, alarming to me, and B, an opportunity to educate them, right? So usually that's kind of what I've been doing for a lot of these companies, sharing the knowledge. Okay, if you get, if something happens, follow this plan, give them guidance, give them direction on what to do. Even if you got to report it, know who to report to. Either it's FBI or something or somebody, right? And have them, assist you in their instant response. But have a plan, right? At the end of the day. Not just cybersecurity, but I guess in any incident, right? If there's a fire, you want to have a huge, like I live in California, unfortunately there, eventually the San Andreas fault line will go, and the people that I feel like that will be affected are the people that don't have a plan, and the people that won't be affected are the people that have a plan. So it's not just cybersecurity. I guess you always want to have a plan for any type of safety, or have a to-go kit or something, right? You want to have an exit, right? So always have a cybersecurity incident response plan. So that's the big one. So if you ever talk to anybody, just ask them, do you have a cybersecurity incident response plan? And I'd bet my money it's a 70-30 chance they're going to say no. So, and if they say no, say, okay, well, you need it. You need to have one, right? Try to take the opportunity to educate them. Next slide. And then resources. Obviously, contact Agriculture Defense Group. Me, obviously, you got to give yourself a shout out. CISA, FBI, DHS websites, Food Ag ISAC, like I mentioned, those folks are what some of the reports that they're producing on this industry is pretty cool stuff. So definitely join that group. I think they're awesome people. Follow me on LinkedIn, Agricultural Defense Group on LinkedIn, Cyber Cowboy on X. I don't know if some of you guys already follow me or not. And then Agriculture Defense Group on Instagram, where I'm constantly just posting anything ag related. Or cyber ag related. So I'm always posting on there just for awareness again. Next slide. And then thank you. And then here's my contact information. If you guys ever want to send me an email or give me a call, like I said, I'm in the Pacific side of California, Las Vegas area, so I'm always bouncing between both states. So if you're ever in the area, let me know if you want to talk. I can definitely assist you guys on anything like that. Or if anybody has any questions, feel free to send me a text or a call or an email. So thank you, everyone, and hopefully you guys can get out there and spread the word on cybersecurity awareness in the agriculture industry.
We do have some time for questions, so feel free to either shout them out, or if you'd like for me to bring this to you for a question.
So the SERSHA Act was delayed a little bit, but it's focused on critical infrastructure. Is there anything in there specific to agriculture that you're aware of?
Um, that one I don't know. I'd be lying to you if I knew the top of my head. I'd have to research it. I know there's an act coming out of, if that's the one coming out of Texas. No, national. Okay, yeah, no, I don't. I haven't. Yeah, I don't think I've actually read anything about that. But I know when it comes to law, there's a bill coming out of Texas. I forget what legislative representative is pushing it out, but it's specifically on cybersecurity in agriculture, and he's actually whoever advised him on putting it together. I think they've done a pretty good job on what to bring more resources to it.
The reason I bring it up is we do work with some ports, and it's kind of similar to agriculture. They're way behind, but they're dealing with a lot of different needs and so forth. And they're looking at how they get extra funding, right?
Yeah.
Right? So they're being asked to report. Is that working? They're being asked to do more reporting, and agriculture
Test.
farmers will only do kind of what's
Test.
beneficial to them.
Yeah.
Test.
Funding assistance and so forth.
Test. Test.
That's what a lot of ports are doing. That money
Test.
Yeah.
Test. Test.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, any funding, any help would be of value to the industry as a whole. So that's. I'll have to read up on that, but thank you for that.
So Ray, I've got a question for
Yes.
you. So how do you get engaged with some of these? So are you going in and doing assessments? Are they requesting you to come in? Or are you going in and saying, government pushing you in? What's the mechanism for assessing how well somebody's performing this space?
A little bit of both. When I first started this, obviously leveraging my dad's contacts. Obviously for those that are in the ag, they're farmers. In Davis, for example, right? There's only so many families that control a lot, and just through word of mouth, I would just go to some trucking companies that I know that my family has a relationship with, and so I'd go in there and obviously pitch it. I mean, I still have to. They have to get their attention and whatever. So in the beginning, I would say is a lot of legwork, just going to a lot of these businesses, door knocking and introducing myself and just begging for 30 minutes of their time, as of late though, the last two engagements they've contacted me, which was kind of cool. But at the end of the day though, I think there's still a lot of work to be done when it comes to bringing awareness and getting engaged with other companies as well. So,
A lot of education.
a lot of education. Yeah.
Ray, I mean, you hit one thing, ports, right? And we talk about supply chain. I mean, ag has its own challenges, IT, OT, security, unlike other companies, right? I mean, if you look at Tyson's, I got my chickens, I'm in my plant, that's one thing. Where you look at security in ag, where, okay, you can have a large company like Monsanto, but then you're out in a completely unsecure place. Ports are way more porous than a nuclear facility.
Yeah.
Right? The challenge there. When you look at supply chain, whether it be these attacks coming in, which even current survey more, right? If we look at we're manufacturing less machinery here, John Deere on your shirt, or
Yeah.
whoever it may be, right? We're relying more on Chinese manufacturing or overseas manufacturing of our equipment. It's actually pulling that seed out, looking at soil, looking at water, looking at everything that comes through. And that
Field sensors. Yeah.
where do you see that communication between OT, the guys that are out there getting their, shit on their shoes and, dirt under their nails, and the guys up here with the IT security What are your recommendations of that communication?
Just getting out there and shaking their hand and building that relationship. I think I correlate that to when I first started in the utility sector many years ago. Same thing. Power system engineers did not want security in their stuff. At the end of the day, their job is to keep the lights on. Their job is not to do security, whatever, right? And a couple times, I pretty much got told in a very professional manner to get out of their environment. They don't want some kid touching their stuff. Years ago when I was younger. So I would say, to answer your question, I would say just get out there, shake somebody's hand, build that relationship with them, and educate them. And unfortunately, the industry, from what I've seen at the granular level, I'm not talking about the Tyson Foods or those major companies that do have obviously obligations they got to abide by, and all these things. I I would say just get out there, build a relationship with them, and educate, whether it's a local farmer or any small co-op or whatever. Um,
Earlier, it's the co-ops and the associations that are
Co-ops,
going to help.
exactly.
yeah,
Because what I mean, we've already seen it with like sprinkler control systems went from local radio control to cellular and cloud service and subscriptions.
Yep.
They paid for it up front previously.
yeah,
The farmer didn't want to do it because they'd already paid for it.
yeah,
But they were forced into going to the cloud because that was the only option
yeah,
available. And they saw it as a money grab, but it's more than just a money grab. They lost control.
yeah,
Now, when they turn on what they turn on, they don't. They're relying on some other company.
yeah,
They don't know what their cyber policies
yeah.
are. They just know they have an app on their phone. They
And it needs to work. Yeah, and saying that's the thing is just education, and that's what I've been trying to preach the last couple of years. Just bring awareness and educate them, ask the right questions. Just kind of like when you go into a substation, right? You need to know what questions to ask to get a proper posture on what you need to do for that thing. So,
So I have a question.
yeah,
So you mentioned connected vehicles as being a potential vector. And
Yeah.
the Biden administration has proposed bans on connected vehicles from the PRC, such as through BYD.
yeah.
Do you think this legislation will improve the situation? What can we do to get a clear vision of the supply chain for these connected vehicles or otherwise internet-connected devices on the farm?
Yeah. So when I guess I rephrase, I guess if I say connected vehicles, I mean connected like tractors and stuff like that. But I guess same, different. Yes and no. I think that legislator, I can't recall if it actually. I think it only addresses vehicles though, like not actual tractors or these other technologies, right? So, in that sense, to answer your question, I don't think that legislation is not going to do anything at all. Or not do anything. What I do think needs to happen, though, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. It's just my personal opinion, because at the end of the day, we need to control what we bring in your environment, right? Just like any asset owners here or any cybersecurity people here, you don't want just some random person plugging things into your environment and without being properly vetted, right? Or at least I hope not. I hope you're not letting them do that, right? So I would say same thing. I would say just hopefully in the next couple years. Not trying to be political or anything, but regardless of who's in office, they pass some type of legislative of power to not allow certain companies in our environments, because one thing is controlling obviously other supply chains of our daily lives. Another thing is controlling our food supply. When you control somebody's food supply, you have a lot of leverage on that country. So, yeah.
Just like the ZTE and the Huawei and everything that we did on some of the cyber pieces, on the IT piece, we need to look at that in the hardware going down into.
Correct.
In case you can't rely on them to do it themselves, it's going to have to be an external factor.
Yeah, like it or not.
Coast Guard came into the ports and they found those Chinese cranes, which undercut everybody. They were cheap as hell, and they're sending stuff back. And they have cellular modems on a cellular crane. Why do you use cellular modems? And therefore, last year, there was about 3 months that they're about to yank them all out.
Yeah.
They shut them all down, and they had to do a lot
But
of
the problem is
negotiating back and
what that does to the infrastructure. You can't just rip it out because it's a shock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
now they're funding a bunch of money to say we need to start building cranes in the U.S. again. And so,
It-
in some of this, you need to help build that up and then make it noise,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To show that these attacks that you might hear get more publications.
Yeah.
Show what. There's no such thing as tabletop exercises in ag.
No, there's not. No. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have found that in like the water utilities, China's all across the water utilities, and all they've got to be able to shut it down,
Yeah.
right? So we've got time for probably one or two more questions before lunchtime. So here you go.
I tried.
So kind of what he was talking about.
He was talking about all the stuff we have out here, these different, this single factory that's part of maybe a bigger infrastructure, not that, like I said, they've had to connect their sprinklers to the cloud now. They're interconnected. And this is essentially a SCADA network floating out in the ether. It's in the wild, it's here and there. And one of the big challenges I think you're going to run into, because I see this in SCADA, is those people don't want people touching their stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, no, this is our setup. We don't want this kind of thing done. But we've seen the damage that can be done in SCADA networks, Stuxnet, and things like that that have happened. Your education actually needs to go to these farmers. Is there something like that that y'all are pushing out to try to tell them, hey, we don't want your chicken house catching on fire because somebody had remote access to your heater? Let's talk about this and start trying to build that sort of SCADA mindset for those environments that are floating out
So the question is if I'm like pushing something out to tell them that? Is that what the question?
Well, what specifically what they're doing is irrelevant. But
Yeah.
like I said, the example was your chicken house just caught on fire because your
Yeah.
heaters were internet connected. How do y'all work on that education for the farmers, or y'all trying to do that sort of stuff in the agriculture environment?
Yeah, we do. So part of some of the engagements that I've done is to obviously get a good understanding of their environment, and then also show them the consequences that what can happen if somebody were like that RDP workstation I showed you. I actually showed them that, and I say, well, technically, you know, here you go, and yeah, and then I show them what can happen, right? Again, they don't. But when I've seen, they don't understand the impact, the risk, right, of what can happen if somebody shuts down your meat processing workstation or these fuel tanks or whatever. But yes, part of our engagements is to educate them on what the potential risk or the potential impact would be if somebody were to do this, right? Specifically, as kind of mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, or I don't know if I did, but from what I've seen, some of these attacks are happening at specific times within the harvest. So right when tomato season starts, right when certain things happen. So yeah, correct. Yeah. So
I think the other thing too is, we're gonna, and this isn't down the road. This is like around the corner. Is more and more autonomous machinery.
yeah,
I mean, I just actually tested one of those scythe mowers that's completely autonomous, made in the U.S. And it's great. I can map it out on my phone, and everything, but I can also make it do something pretty offensive as far as mowing on somebody's front lawn. I mean,
yeah,
these are things that we joke. It's funny, but we have to assume, given the fact of where farming is, where generations taken over, does it make sense to put somebody in a tractor for 10 hours a day when I can do this?
yeah,
And it's coming.
yeah,
And unfortunately, we're probably not the ones developing it. So I think getting
yeah,
those requirements soon,
yeah.
getting the government talking soon is important.
Yeah. So if anybody, if you guys know any legislative people that want to push anything, feel free to share my information and like say, hey, I listened to the guys talk, because I'd love to speak to any. I have talked to like my local representatives, but again, everybody has their action items, that things they need to do.
We got one final question over here.
Yeah.
This is way off from anything that's been asked
Yeah.
so far, but just I know you touched on a lot of the threat groups
Yeah.
that are out there. I was curious, particularly, I'm not as familiar with the subset of agriculture security. What kinds of TTPs do you guys typically see? Like, is there a particular pattern, or is it just everything that you typically would see in OT, or are there some things that are more specific to agricultural environments?
I think it depends on what the company offers. For example, Monsanto, from what I've seen, I feel like China's kind of figured them out. So they're like, it's probably easier to get somebody in there and steal something and plant something than try to hit them from the outside, right? Through many different avenues, like through college pathways, or research opportunities and things like that, right? But versus a local fertilizing company, I think things that I've seen is just basic stuff like scanning, like doing your light recon work and running like I don't know, like some type of password guessing thing and guessing the password, or just typing things on bad admin, creds, or what's it called? Yeah, they don't have to be sophisticated. Yeah,
The one thing that's fairly unique is the wireless. You go with the wireless scanner, and you can find all kinds of stuff.
yeah,
And it's not even the idea of the username or password. It's a shell.
yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I know I threw in those APTs that they throw, like, they've got resources and they're very well organized, right? They know what they're doing. But I wouldn't be surprised if some of those APTs are like, "Are you serious, man?" Like, like they're thinking, they're whatever. They're probably thinking, "Are you, like, I'm in." Like, that's how easy it is. So, but again, bring awareness. That's the whole main objectives.
Yeah, I do wonder, because so many of those operational locations are remote. They're like, oh, they can't touch us because I'm remote, right?
Yeah, no.
But they're still connected.
Yeah,
right.
That's the mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well,
Yeah, can we thank Ray for being here? He traveled a long way to be here, so we really appreciate all your input, and
you.
he'll stick around for any additional questions, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.